What happened out at Monash Council last night? This has become a bit of a tradition. Ratepayers revolting, a noisy, reportedly violent protest at Monash. I mean, it's happened at Yarra before. This time, 100 protesters chanting. The council meeting called off. Councillors say it was democracy closed down. The reason, the council's support for a drag queen to read stories to kids in a library in May. Now, we've debated this issue before with both sides. Many locals object, but the council has decided it will go ahead. I'm told this is even dividing, and I must be careful to get the order right here. There's even division in the LGBTIQA+ community about this. Anyway, out at Monash, a local councillor, Dr Josh Fergus, is reported as saying the demonstrators threatened violence, were physically intimidating and tried to override democracy. On the line now, it's a person, I know her full name, but she doesn't want us to use it, which I can entirely understand, who was a ratepayer at the meeting. Alexandra, good morning.
Good morning, Neil. Thanks for having me on.
Is this really so bad that you would fear retribution if your name was known?
Well, just after the way the media and our own Premier has framed women speaking up for women's rights and child safeguarding as Nazis and transphobes, yes, I do.
Okay.
And that's why I prefer, you've got my full name, but I prefer not to make my full name public because I've got 2 young children to think of.
All right, that's entirely your right. Now, what happened last night? What happened?
Well, I object to the way you framed it earlier, Neil, because it was I was there. And we were not physically intimidating in any way. As you can tell, I'm a female, I'm a woman. There were lots of mothers there, ratepayers, locals. There were also men there, fathers.
Well, what happened?
All sorts of men. Well, we congregated peacefully and we wanted into the council meeting because we thought we're going to take this fight to the councillors that are organising this event. Because our objection to this event is that they're using ratepayer funds to have a drag queen read to little children their own paperwork aims at and advertises it to children aged 1 to 6. And the books that they'll be reading, they cover concepts that are just way too young. They're not appropriate for young minds to understand.
The concept being what? I have spoken to the person who's going to do the reading. This was some months ago.
It's queer theory and gender identity.
In the books?
And in the books, yes. And we object to that. We object to that, Neil.
Oh, I don't think the 1 to 6-year-olds would have a clue what it was all about.
Well, I think it's confusing little kids.
True.
Yeah.
Okay, so what happened at the council? And by the way, it's not me saying it was violent intimidation. That's Dr Josh Fergus, one of the councillors.
Dr Josh, good old, our mate Dr Josh, who's blocked me on Twitter, saying that I was menacing, which I was not.
Okay, what happened last night?
So we weren't violent in any way. We patiently waited and we had all submitted questions. I believe there could have been in excess of 30 questions that they had access to respond to our concerns about child safeguarding and this event. They grouped them together in the end after they made us sit through all these questions that, mind you, the LGBTIQ+ community, they had at least 3 or 4 questions about promoting their safety. Their questions were answered straight away.
Alexander, what happened? There's the questions being asked. Was the chanting, was the jeering?
Yes, there was chanting afterwards. When they finally got to our questions, firstly, they just answered one question pretty much. And I can quote here that the concern that was raised about child safeguarding, and this is a direct quote from Mayor Tina, children are never too young to receive such messages.
Okay, so your supporters, we're told about 100 of them, started chanting?
Yes, we did.
What were you chanting?
Because our concern was she responded to us by saying that they'll do a risk assessment after the event.
Oh, dear.
Does that make sense to you, Neil?
So what were you chanting?
Hands off our kids, shame, things like that.
Were you thrown out?
No, not at all.
Well, they just closed the meeting.
No, it was still open. They adjourned for 15 minutes and all the councillors walked out. So while they walked out, we chanted, shame on you. Absolutely.
Who were the protesters?
We feel like we're not being heard, Neil. We've inundated them with emails, phone calls, we all get the same cookie cutter response about diversity and inclusion. No one is actually answering our questions. It's not appropriate for ratepayer funds to be used in this way.
How much is being used? Well, it can't be too expensive.
Well, we don't know, but I dare say I don't believe that Sam T is coming to read the story time and doing it out of the goodness of their own heart. They're being paid. I actually said to the councillor, why don't you hire Sam T to do a drag bingo night at Oakley Junction Hotel for 18 plus? Crickets, no response. Why is it aimed at kids 1 to 6? Why? And no one can provide that response.
Okay,
and it's not good enough, Neil.
There's a couple of aspects here, and you're well entitled to make your point and protest,
Sure.
but you don't have to go, and you don't take your kids along. I mean, it's not compulsory to people. So why not just boycott it?
Yeah, we will boycott. But the thing is, this is in our backyard. I grew up in Oakley. I work in Oakley. I'm heading there in half an hour to go to work. It's not right. And I'm sorry, I come from a long line of people where when something is wrong, we have to stand up. And I feel like we're living in a dystopian society when women or anyone can't speak up for the safeguarding of children. Because you're introducing concepts to young minds, you are confusing them.
Okay.
These books are telling little kids that they may be born in the wrong body. I'm sorry, that is madness.
What is the name? Do you know the name of the books that are going to be read?
So they've given us a list.
Yeah.
One of them is She's My Dad, Jacob's School Play starring he, she and they, and that one covers, the concept of gender identity. And the hips on the drag go swish, swish, swish. And I'd like to mention that Monash Council last night gave a definition of woman, and they described it as anyone who identifies as a woman. And I will stand up now and say that I yelled out shame, because a woman is an adult human female. And when we deny biological reality and we can't say what a woman is in public, that's where we're heading down a real slippery slope.
Well, all right. Well, it's going ahead. When is it? Sometime in May? Sometime next month?
On the 19th of May.
Okay.
But we will regroup and we will continue to bombard Monash Council and the library.
Okay.
With our concerns, because I'm sorry, they are not protecting children.
Will you protest at the library on the day?
Well, this is the thing. I'm not quite sure. We shall see.
Yeah, I'd be careful about that, because you don't want the kids in the middle of that.
I understand, but some of that responsibility needs to go to the actual councillors. And may I say, the only councillor who has been reasonable in returning our calls and speaking to us in a fair manner is Theo Zagrafos. The rest of them refuse to engage.
All right. Thank you very much, Alexandra. We'll keep in touch. The drag queen reading at the... And I did talk to the person who was going to do this, Sam T, is it? I think it's Sam T, last time. And he did say that they were going to read books which were to sort of get the message out to kids about same-sex parents and transgender issues. We'll have a look at those books. She's My Dad, He, She, They, The Party, and The Hips on the Drag Queen Go. See, I haven't... You don't want to confuse kids any further by having blokes dressed up as women turn up. But if it's entertaining to the kids, and if it's not pushing an agenda, I haven't got a big problem with it. It does sound to me, though, as if it's pushing an agenda. And is the council really incapable of defining what a woman is?